But first, the mass killing in Bucha, and how will the world respond? This is NewsNation's special coverage of the war in Ukraine. Good evening. I'm Rudabeh Shabazi. I'm in tonight for Marnie Hughes. Leland and I will take you through the next hour. And these images coming out of Ukraine are just horrendous, maybe some of the worst we've seen yet. Civilians shot, bodies bound, dumped in mass graves outside Ukraine's capital city.
Yeah, as somebody just said to me on Twitter who's been through a number of different conflicts around the world, war is hell. We are now just seeing it up close and personal in a way that we had never really seen in real time before. Obviously, some stuff from the Middle East, but not in this level and to this degree are we seeing the brutality in this time of the Russian troops who are now rerouting away from Kyiv. They deny the mass killings. There appears now at least to be overwhelming evidence that it's happened. President Biden says Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. Here's President Biden today, just off Marine One.
We have to gather all the detail so this can be have a war crime trial. This guy is brutal, and what's happening in Bucha is outrageous.
Back here over at the maps, just to kind of give you a sense of what is happening. We're going to talk in a minute about those killings. That's just outside of Kyiv here and here. Important, though, to watch what the Russians are doing right now. They're moving all of these troops around back through Russia, possibly to resupply because they can't resupply in Ukraine, and then all pushing down here into the eastern part of the country. This is Kharkiv. There's not much left of Kharkiv, but they're still holding out. The Ukrainians have cut the Russian supply lines here. This is really the only Russian enclave left here in the east that the Ukrainians have not been able to make any kind of real headway into, nor have the Russians been able to push out from it. Still a standstill here. We're going to show you some video out of Izum right now, where the Russians now are launching thermobaric weapons. These are the vacuum bombs that create such an explosion that they collapse people's lungs. They're designed to kill and to obliterate large areas, typically used against civilian populations. So that's what's happening right now in the east, as the Russians try and change the momentum, at least in one theater of this war. Now to near Kyiv, where the latest reports of war crimes are. We'll keep moving through here to get to Kyiv and show you exactly what the Ukrainians have picked up. They have totally changed the strategic map here just in the past 48 or 72 hours. As the Russians left and headed out north, the Ukrainians have now come through this whole area. They own all the way up to the Belarusian border. They also own significant areas out here to the east of Kyiv. So Kyiv no longer is really under threat from the Russian armor columns. Still possibly, obviously, there that the Russians could launch airstrikes. As the Ukrainians came in to Irpin and Bucha and some of the other cities that had been under Russian siege, this is what the Ukrainians and journalists there found. It is graphic, which probably isn't even a word that comes close to describing the experience that people saw as they entered these towns. Bodies littered the streets. These were civilians, women and children. A number of reports that men had been lined up, their hands bound, and then had been executed. There were signs of torture and rape as the Russians pillaged the way through these cities. They thought that they were going to continue to own these cities and wanted a way to try and put down any insurrection and resistance among the locals. Obviously, that didn't happen. The Ukrainians were able to move in through this, and obviously the help of the local population in these towns is what allowed the Ukrainians to keep hitting the Russian armor and force them to evacuate their positions here around Kyiv. We bring in Mike Rogers, former Republican congressman, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Nice to see you. It is profoundly angry, as I think everybody would be, and certainly we saw that from President Biden today. It almost seems sort of lacking in understanding of the way the world works to think that Vladimir Putin is going to either care or be scared of a threat of a war crime tribunal.
No, you're so right, Leland. I mean, so what you see happening is exactly what I think so many were talking about leading up to all this, is the misery index that he's raised, killing civilians indiscriminately. And his troops are obviously either not disciplined or under orders. Either one of those is pretty bad. So you're right. He doesn't care. He already doesn't care. He's actually repositioning his troops. This is not him going away and licking his wounds. This is regrouping. I fear for the worst here in the near term.
Yeah, and just in terms of Vladimir Putin needing some kind of win here in the East, at least. So if you think about the map, this is areas that had been previously occupied by the Russian separatists. He almost has his land bridge to Crimea. There's a Ukrainian group of about 20,000 soldiers here that have been holding out. You've got Izum here, and then you've got Kharkiv here. The Ukrainians have a pretty good blocking position. How good is American insight into what Vladimir Putin actually wants and actually is willing to settle for?
Candidly, it's not that great. I mean, there's some oligarchs that are coming out and saying some things, but, you know, we know in past speeches what he said he wants for Ukraine. And that's why many believed he would go to the east. And the Dnieper River on your map there almost divides Ukraine in half. In the east, lots of good stuff there. The largest lithium mine in the world, they believe, is there. Lots of aerospace industry. Remember, that was the place that built all their version of ICBMs during the Soviet Union were all built in Western Ukraine. So it has lots of industrial base that he would be interested in. Most of everything he really wanted was east of the Dnieper River. And that's not nearly as far as you see those red marks on your map.
We'll just put it in so people understand. This is the Dnieper River coming north to south. It goes right through Kyiv, then comes down, and then heads out this way. So the Russians have this area east of the Dnieper. This whole area, though, in the center is still contested. They don't have Kharkiv or anything south of this. This is still an awful lot of territory in Ukrainian control. Are we to believe that Russia even has the ability, if they want, to push out from any of these positions and capture the east?
Well, remember, some of those troops are going through Belarus and coming back around to the east. It would wouldn't be beyond the pale for them to kind of regroup, the Russians regroup, and try to continue to push on into the east, or just to, again, continue to cause civilian casualties where the Ukrainians say, got it, you can have what you got, but you got to stop killing people. That would not necessarily, from Putin's mind, be a bad outcome, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does. It, to your point, shows why he's willing to use such brutal tactics and basically level towns so they don't exist anymore of what he's fighting over. As you point out, he's more interested in the industrial base and the natural resources of eastern Ukraine than he is in liberating or freeing any people. The United Nations Watch executive director tweeted, "For God's sakes, Russia cannot remain on the UN Human Rights Council." Do you really think people are so deluded as to believe that Vladimir Putin cares what anybody in the rest of the world thinks?
I do think that some people still believe he does care. It's clear by his actions he does not. And candidly, the big establishment folks have been getting Putin wrong for 15 years. And he has said repeatedly what he wants to do. And by the way, it always included Ukraine. And guess what? Guess where he is. And remember, when nobody pushed back at his activities in Syria, or when he invaded the country of Georgia, or when he took Crimea, he believed he was winning in all those instances. He was doing activities against American targets. Let me back up. With his intelligence folks helping adversaries of the United States in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sure. They were definitely doing those activities, causing us pain and problems and causing the deaths of soldiers. Nobody pushed back. Nobody cared. They always said, no, he's coming around. He'll be rational. He has surpassed that. And do you really think now that if we give them air defense weapons, that's the thing that's really going to honk him off? He's all in. And we really need to be, I'm not talking about U.S. troops, but give them the technical weapons that they need to have. They're called standoff weapons, where they can fight at a distance and keep him at bay. That's going to do more to get him to the negotiating table than throwing him off of some committee at the United Nations.
Yeah, for sure. Vladimir Putin only understands force. You're right, though, that this has been going all the way back to George W. Bush and the Republic of Georgia invasion. So it's not a partisan issue. It's just this is how Vladimir Putin plays, and the U.S. hasn't figured out how to stand up to him. Former Republican congressman, FBI agent, retired Army officer, Mike Rogers. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.